Sulaiman, I'm going to pose this to you. Is it possible for abusers to change? Once an abuser, always.
So is it possible for an abuser, a man, to change? And I believe it is possible. I mean, I've been doing it for 29 years, working directly with men. And over those 29 years, I've intervened with thousands of men. And so I do believe that. I believe it's work, though. I believe it's not something that's easy for us. Being in a relationship is the hardest work we will ever do in our life. When I'm not working with Men Stopping Violence, I have a private practice where I do a lot of work with couples, teaching and educating couples about what it is to be in relationships. And the woman I'm married to, Myra, we do this work together. The idea, though, something we learned years ago at Men Stopping Violence, was that working with the men we were working with in a classroom was not going to end violence against women. Because we see such a small, minute percentage of men who abuse women. So we realized that if we're going to change something, and if we're going to support these men in change, we had to get more into the community. So part of our curriculum, the program that we run, the 24-week educational program, requires men to bring men from their community to witness their work. So imagine a 24-week program, men meeting 2 hours per week. When they get to their 12th week, halfway through the program, they are required to bring one man from their community to witness their work. Now I want you to know that is not easy for a man to do. Number one, this is something I've guarded for years. I don't talk about it. Nobody knows about it. No, man, I ain't got nobody in my life like that. You know, we got a lot of men we got sport and play with. But when it comes to really getting serious, talking about, you know, the real serious stuff in our life, we don't have men in our lives to do that with. So we require that. Towards the end of the program, a man has to turn in a proposal for a project that he's going to do in the community. In doing that project, he has to bring together 4 men from his community. Now all of a sudden we've expanded his community. So get the vision of what I'm talking about. Now he has brought possibly 5 men into this work. And on his last class, he brings those men with him and he presents his project. What we're doing now is beginning to create accountability outside of the classroom. Because now there are men in his life who are aware of what he's done and begin to hold him accountable. So you see how it grows. So change is possible. One last piece. We were talking about community a while ago. I believe that it's time for community to take responsibility for this issue. And for us to stop looking to the criminal legal system to do it. The system has not really served women well. I believe that when our faith-based institutions, when our churches, our synagogues, our masjids, our temples begun to speak about this issue and talk about it, change will happen.
Yes.
Change will happen. When the pastor is standing up on a Sunday talking about this issue, recognizing that in that congregation there are women, there are girls who are being abused. How do we in our congregations, in our communities, create safe spaces for women? And how do we hold him accountable for it? When the community gets involved, changes will happen even more. So our goal as we do this work is constantly speaking to people about this. And this is why I'm so honored to be here with you. Thank you.
May I add something to that? I want to add something to that. It's very important, like he said, to talk to your churches. You have to go to your pastors and say, hey, we want to know more about domestic violence. Will you bring someone in to talk about that? Because I always reach out to churches and say that, hey, I'm available to do it. And some churches say, well, we don't have that problem here. And I'll have to say, well, if you look at the number of parishioners you have and you look at the statistics, I promise you have that problem here. My church is very open. Whatever I ask my pastor to do in terms of domestic violence, sex trafficking, sex abuse, he talks about it. They'll have a whole Sunday dedicated to it. And we'll have resources set up for you to go by the tables and a couple Sundays ago, we did Domestic Violence Awareness Sunday, and people flocked to the tables to get all the resources. They wanted to be able to help their communities. But if you don't say to your churches, your places of worship, hey, we want people in here to talk about it, they're gonna think that they don't have this problem going on. And most of the time, well, the women in my circle, when we have issues, we would go to the church first to say, hey, I need help with this relationship or with my marriage, and they're ill-equipped to help you. A lot of times they say, well, you need marital counseling, get marital counseling, and that's the worst thing that you can tell someone. So it's up to you to be the foot soldiers, to go harass them, because that's what I had to do to my pastor, harass them and say, hey, we've got to start this conversation.
It's hard for me to harass in our community, but like when we first started, Sulaiman was a part of some of our first outreach, right? When we started doing outreach 20 years ago, with our community, there was a lot of fear that we're there to break up families. Yeah. And so there were a lot of closed doors. And it's just now that some of the communities are really waking up. But part of what we do is we have to reframe what we're saying, because when you say domestic violence and you say sexual violence, yes. and my coworker Switch is right behind there saying, that the parents freak out. Even when we're talking to youth about it, they're like, no, I don't want to expose my kids to too much. And so we have to reframe what we're saying. And part of what, the way that you can also put it is like, what if they have a friend who's being abused? How can they provide support? So finding safe ways to do it in your congregations or in your faith-based communities, so where your community can hear you, and that you can start a door, start opening the doors. It's like, let's just put the hotline information. Maybe you're not ready, but what I've seen in the 20 years is now some of the faith communities are really, really comfortable. Like I said, this is a big deal when that Gurdwara let us come in and spend some time talking, and they call us as a resource, and now we're going to start some support groups, in the Gurdwara, that it takes time, and we have our community is so diverse that we have 5 or 6 different religions, so it's impossible for a small agency to do it all, but we're trying to build it by creating some tools so that parents will have the resources to have these conversations with their kids. So folks, but try to think about how you may reframe it if you get that first no, and continue the conversation.
Let's talk about healing, and then we'll open up the Q&A. And maybe I'll first start with Priscilla and Pina, and the others can chime in if they have thoughts as well. But can you talk about how people can heal in the aftermath of domestic violence?
Well, in my case, yes. At first, before I moved to Atlanta, I was really struggling about how I can even go forth to even try to start the healing process. And I came here and started, I thought, finishing or beginning my healing process. But I had gotten to a point I realized I was still, as I say, living behind the veil, not willing to even approach the situation of dealing with it. I kept pushing it back. But I realized last year I had to stop doing it, because I was giving control to the person or people who did this to me. And as long as I did that, they were having control over my life. So I sought the help that I needed through a fabulous counselor. And she took each day I met with her, step by step. She didn't push me. She didn't force me. She took it to the place where I knew I was able to move forward to do what I needed to do. Because in my situation, I was dealing with a domestic situation, and I was dealing with a situation of being robbed, where my life was almost taken away from me. And in my situation, she helped me heal through that. She helped me heal through the fact that even in the domestic situation, the guy I was dating had hit me so badly one evening. I went to work, didn't even know that I was in this situation. I thought I would just have my monthly cycle. However, I came to find out that I started bleeding profusely, and when I got to the hospital, they said, "Do you realize you were pregnant?" I said, "No, I didn't." And the most devastating thing I had to do was I had to sign a death certificate. I had lost my daughter. Didn't even know it. I was pregnant. She helped me get through that. She helped me get through the fact of me dealing with the robbery, where the gentleman actually said cut me with a butcher's knife, and it was a ½ inch on my main jugular vein. And my son had to see that. His mother bandaged up. In the midst of that, I was still being abused. Going to work, black eyes, bruised up and everything. But this woman helped me to heal. And that's why I can say for me, I have victory beyond the pain. But I had to make that decision. I couldn't allow this man, these people to have control over me. And when I say continuous victory over the pain, I set my family down last year and told them everything. They did not know that I was homeless, living in my car, just because I didn't want them to know what I was going through with my family, with myself, and how I was dealing with, I lost my daughter through all of this. They did not know any of this. I had to tell them. And what really helped me to get beyond my pain, I went back to the man who actually did this to me, and I told him, you caused this, but I'm not, I said, I forgive you because you were on drugs. You weren't yourself. And once I made that step toward him, and I told him, he lost it. He broke down and cried and asked for my forgiveness. I said, God, there's victory beyond the pain. Yes. And that's why I can tell women today and men, there is victory beyond whatever pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, however. If you allow to take that first step, God will help you with that next step. But you got to put your faith, your trust, and ask God, I'm ready to be healed. And He will transform your mind and your thinking. And He will take you to a place where you've never been before. And that's why I can sit here today and say, I have victory beyond the pain.
All right.